We're going to move into learning how to find the volume of various three-dimensional objects. And there are three that we're going to focus on right at first. And the three shapes we're going to deal with are the cylinder, the cone, and the sphere. And we're going to start with the cylinder, as you can see. And each one of these has a similar but slightly different formula, and they're all based on a value that we call pi. And if you're not familiar with pi, I'll link a video explaining where pi comes from and what pi is. But just very briefly, pi is the ratio of an object's circumference to its diameter, specifically a circular object. And pi is an irrational number. We've talked about irrationals previously, but a really decent approximation for pi is 3.14. And usually when we are calculating with pi, that's what we use, 3.14. It's a decent approximation, 3.14. Most calculators nowadays have a pi button on them that gives a much better approximation of pi, but usually the best we can do is an approximation of pi. Well, not usually. The best we can do is an approximation of pi because it is irrational. We can never get the exact value of pi. So most of these problems we're going to use 3.14 for pi. And if it doesn't, if it meaning the problem doesn't say use 3.14, we'll just use the pi button on the calculator. Worst case scenario, your answer will be very, very, very slightly different if instead of using the pi button, you just use 3.14, not enough to get a twist over. So with a cylinder or cone or sphere, you're going to use a formula to get the circumference, not the circumference, to get the volume. And the formula that we need to know for a cylinder, for the volume of a cylinder, it looks like this. We start off with pi r squared. Pi r squared, you may remember from previous math courses, is the area of a circle. So the bottom of a sphere is a circle, so we're finding the area of that circle on the bottom. The way that we get the volume meaning the entire inside of the cylinder, is we take the area of that circle and then we multiply by how tall the cylinder is. So it's pi r squared multiplied by the height of that cylinder. So we find the area of the circle on the bottom and then we multiply by how tall the cylinder is. So it's like we're taking the circle and then we're adding however many circles it takes to make the height of that cylinder. It's essentially what the formula is doing. So if we have the radius of the cylinder, the radius of that circle on the bottom, and we have the height, really all we're doing with these problems is just plugging numbers into this equation and then using the calculator to find the answer. So in this first cylinder, we are given the radius, which is 3 inches, and we are given the height, which is 10 inches, and we're just going to substitute those two numbers into this volume formula. So we're going to do V equals, and then the problem says, hey, use 3.14 for pi. So where it says pi, we're going to substitute 3.14. We are then going to do the radius squared. The radius is 3, so 3 squared. And then we're going to multiply by the height. I think I'm going to use a different color for the height just to keep straight what I'm substituting where. So let's do the height in yellow here. So multiplied by 10. Now, if you've got a more advanced calculator, like a TI-84 calculator, you can plug it in just exactly like this, and the calculator will just kind of go with it. Um, I, I don't know if this calculator I'm using right now will let me do it all at once. Let's go ahead and try it. I'm doing this live here. I've never actually tried to do all of this at once. Let's try it. 3.14, and then in parentheses, 3 squared times 10. Hey, look at that, it will. So we're going to type it in exactly like it's written here, and it equals 282.6. Okay, so my answer is 282.6. We have to be really careful with the unit, though. We measured everything in inches, so we might be tempted just to say the answer is inches. But it's not, Because we're measuring volume, and volume is always measured in inches cubed, cubic inches. That doesn't mean that we take our 282.6 and then cube it. We do not do anything different with the number. The number is 282.6. Just the units are cubic units, and that's any measure of volume is cubic units. Just like that, 282.6 cubic inches. Again, the cubic inches, the cube applies only to the unit, not to our number. Our number's fine, 282.6, that's the answer. We do not cube the answer, 282.6 is it. But the units we measure in cubic inches, just like if we were doing area, we would do square inches. Volume is measured in cubic inches. Okay, let's try another one. So this one, we are given the height, and let's stick with our color scheme here and do height in yellow. That's going to be our height. We are not given the radius. You can see that the line right here for that 6.4 is going all the way across. So 6.4 is actually the diameter. The diameter is the entire distance across. We just want the radius. And hopefully you recall that radius is half of the diameter. So the radius is going to be half of 6.4. 6.4 divided by 2, and 6.4 divided by 2 is 3.2. We are, of course, still using 3.14 for pi, so our formula is going to be pi r squared h. So pi is going to be 3.14 times the radius squared. We figured out radius was 3.2, so 3.2 squared times the height, which is 13. So we'll go back to our calculator. 3.14 times 3.2 squared times 13. And the calculator says 417.9968. I feel like it's probably okay for us to round that to 418. 417.996. I'm going to go ahead and call that 418. But I'm going to do approximately to show that I'm rounding it. 418 is my answer. The unit is centimeters, and because it is volume, it's going to be cubic centimeters. Volume is always measured in cubic units. So there you go. That's volume of a cylinder. Pretty easy. Find the height, find the radius, plug them into the formula. Not much to it.